I know. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is Rick gonna be here?
Rick is out. Sounds like he's out talking to Jen right now, so I believe he'll be stepping in just a minute. On this evening's agenda, we have a discussion with the building inspector, code enforcement, about some new thoughts to get better streamlined on making sure that we're taking care of all the different boards that have to do with the building process. That's at 6:10 or whenever we get to it. Then we have old and new business, and then at 7 o'clock we have the opportunity for a non-public if needed. Chairman Talbot had to step away this evening. He had a family engagement that took him away at the last minute. So, fortunately or unfortunately, I will be helping out.
David with the
So I was saying, so fortunately or unfortunately, I'll be running the meeting in his place this evening.
I would say fortunately.
Jason, do you have any opening comments or anything going on right now? Ethan? Nope. Okay. All right. Then all is good. Then we can actually start the discussion. And what I'm actually going to do is turn the camera so that our building inspector is on and not me.
Okay,
All right. So tell us,
so we have John and
Jason.
Jason. And is Sean not showing up?
Sean had a family engagement that came up last minute, so unfortunately he had to step away.
Okay, so one of the reasons why this meeting actually is called is some conversation between Sean and I. And I know that, you know, you guys represent a board of three, but Sean and I have been talking, going back and forth, trying to alleviate some of the issues going on in the building department as it stands now. So we were talking about process on how we can better streamline things, and back several months ago, Laurie and I came here, we presented a process, and there was a little bit of controversy on different committees and boards, appointing one person to be able to just look at a building permit and say whether there's an issue or not. And we didn't hear back, or I didn't hear back from anybody as to what the process was. However, I sent Sean a statement the other day, an email. I put together the process. It would like everyone to consider the building permit process on the applications. And then we'll go through some of these things, and then I'd like to address a couple other things when it comes to the building department and the state that it's in now. Because I'm extremely frustrated on where we are today. I think we came a long way to streamline the process that was respectful and doable to everybody. And in the past 8 weeks, I've pretty much watched it crash. And it's not fair to your contractors, it's not fair to your customers, it's not fair to me. And I'm not sure why we've been derailed as far as we are. So, in order to make a building process work, first off, we're educators. We need to educate the people. Building codes, the codes that are adopted by the state, they're basically out of our control. They get done by the state. We can do everything we want. However, the bottom line is we educate people. So One of the line of defenses is not everybody's aware of what certain building codes are out there, what certain ordinances are out there, even though town ordinances, I feel, are the stronger part of everything. Other people say RSAs and all that, they're right. But town ordinances is what people in your town have voted for, what they want. So when we talk about code enforcement, it's not my rules, it's not your rules, it's what our whole legislative body has said that, yeah, this is what we want. So to make the process right, now you got the building regulations, planning department regulations, you have zoning ordinances. And my job is to make sure that these ordinances and these regulations are in place before issuing a building permit. So where is the piece of art, where is it broken? It's broken in the process to get there. Especially when you have different committees and you have a part-time building official that isn't available for all the meetings, so those communications has to become internal through emails in the process of such. Last year, you put in place iWorks, which I believe is the exact way to go. It's an online portal where people submit their building applications. You'd have somebody here at the town office, which should be looking at this and doing the desk check, and it goes through the process. Did you see that, the email that went around that I had with Sean? So they need to do the desk check. They need to make sure the application's completed. They need to make sure there's a driveway permit in the package. And it's simple as a checklist. The checklist we use over in Ranch. Everything's there, completed application, driveway access permit, septic construction for approval, the copy of the warranty deed, the plot plan drawn to scale, showing all wetlands and any other restrictions it may be. The building plans, the energy code, class 6 road waiver, a private road waiver. And then there's some other miscellaneous things such as oil burner permits and stuff, but the important things is when that comes in, and the person doing the desk check, which was always in the past was it was Robin Broden, then Laurie Rodio, and now Sue Mallett. And I think there's been a link broken because something didn't get conversed back to Sue, what she's supposed to do in the office on when these permits come in. In order for it to be pursued to me for review, this package needs to be reviewed to make sure all that information is there. In the meantime, when zoning and planning board make different regulations or restrictions on property, that email should also, or some correspondence should be brought back to the building department so that we can see that this potential subdivision may have some restrictions or this property does. And that gets back into the desk check. It also needs to go a little further. In our iWorks program, if you gave these other boards a sign-in, and this came up back a few months ago, and some of the boards were concerned, well, we work as a board, not as an individual. Well, in Ringe we do it because we have a planning director. We have a zoning officer that can look at the zoning things. However, there's nothing to say that anybody's held to the extreme if you're doing something to say, if that building application comes in, all those necessary documents are in there, then if it was sent out as an email through the portal or through the clerk that is doing it to the different boards to say, look, if we have a permit on, this is the permit number, it's on the portal for your review. And I'm talking new buildings or any type of additions. I'm not talking internal work, I'm not talking about all the accessory permits, such as your trade permits, like somebody's changing a boiler or something. That doesn't need to go through all of it, but I do think new building permits and accessory permits which encompass an addition beyond the original footprint, whether it be residential or commercial. I know commercially, whenever I see a building permit come in, the first thing I say is, does it need site plan review? And the question gets asked. But where does that question get asked to, and who's answering that question back? So I believe in iWorks, and iWorks is set up that way. You set it up, and there's a notes thing. They can hit the notes tab and say, planning board doesn't see any issues. It only takes one person to say, yeah, this is it, whether it be the chairman or a designee. They're not speaking for the board or giving anybody any special approvals. They're just looking at it and saying, yeah, we probably won't have any concern with this, or yeah, we will. The issue comes that projects are done and people witness them. I'm only part-time. I'm not here every day of the week, so I don't see things. So now things carry on for 3-4 months, even to the point where, like across the street, it gets to the point where the person's already done and already moved the equipment off the property, then somebody says, well, what's he doing there? Well, this should have been addressed in the beginning,
Right.
not after the fact. And I find that that's happened a lot over here, in the town, is call it out at the beginning, or let's have a process. If you look on the portal, anybody, any one of your officials, any one of your official boards should be able to, whether it be Concom, planning, zoning, should be able to look on that portal and say, is there a permit there? Or is there, do we need an intent to cut, alteration of terrain, anything of that nature? It's, to let it go on to the point that now it's already, damage is done, or we're already to the end, and then to bring it forth to say, oh, we got a problem here, that's not the time to do it. The time to do it is, you can look up front, say, okay, and then ask the questions at first. But in the meantime, such as Kennebec, I had no correspondence whatsoever that I knew that that was approved subdivision, but then there were some issues. And if them building permits before they come in went through this test check process, that first building permit would have never been issued because it would have been caught in the front line to say, wait a minute, that needs to still go to planning board, whether it be a road bond issue or whatever the issue may be. So what I'm saying is, we need a link of communication. If we don't have that circle of communication, then it's broken. The chain's broken automatically. And I can't go to every single zoning board meeting, planning board meeting, and every meeting that you do over here. And if that's what the town of New Ipswich is looking for, then you need a full-time person to do that. Because there's a lot of zoning issues, there's a lot of construction over here. And the important part is what is going on over here. I know that your building clerk has got some medical issues, things like that going on. But we're talking 6 weeks, and we're talking 2 days in the office. My office in Ringe is now getting phone calls of things happening over here in New Ipswich, and that can't happen. So I think we need to look at a process and where all the boards are on board, they can sign into the portal, look at the permit applications. I have 30 days to either approve or reject an application when it's submitted. So if the process needs, you can't wait a month because this board meets once a month or this. So somebody needs to be delegated from each thing. Just go on the portal and look and let whoever the clerk is here doing the administrative side know where to send that email. Now, you can do it right in the system and say, when I review a permit and there's things that need to be, something's missing, I put note Rick and I sign it to Sue, and then I say, I need building plans, I need this, or I need a class 6 road waiver. It goes to her, and then that email gets sent out to the customer to provide more information to us. And that's all we need to do. And it's a little bit of training. I'm not gonna take that away. There's a little bit of training in the system for everybody to learn how to use it, including myself. As when I came to work here, there was somebody in the office that would take care of that administrative side of things. I was to deal with reviewing permit applications, and doing the field inspections. So now the dust is piling up. I have not been trained on how to input them into iWorks, and nobody else here has. So we need to get training on board with iWorks on the people to do that. Now, when Laurie left, Debbie took over, and then, from what I understand, Deb was trying to train some of the new people on how to do the system, and for whatever reason, that was not allowed, or it didn't happen, and I'm not sure exactly where that link got broken, but it does need to be addressed. Because we have backup training, so maybe it is, when Sue gets back, getting iWorks on the phone and saying, we need to retrain everybody, or we need to do something. But I'm trying to keep up with the field inspections, but I don't have the time to do it all in here and do the field inspection. I just don't have that kind of time.
So you said the iWorks platform was in place last year
Yes.
Yes.
and was working smoothly.
Yeah, I think it's actually really a good way to go. And it's a good way to put the chain in where other departments, committees can look at what's going on, the activity. Even for the Board of Selectmen to look at it and see what kind of activity, what kind of permits do we have. And we can run reports through it to give you an idea, how many permits, what category, how many, it basically has, the difference between the one you have here and the one I have in Ringe is, we track all our building permits and inspections, but the people can't log on and do it. They actually physically have to come to the town. I think you guys got it one step further, because you can go online from your home as long as we get all the information. But somebody needs to administer it here. And that seems to be a broken link right now.
Okay. Well, I know Sue has been out, but this is the first I've heard that there was stuff that was slipping coming out of that office. So I appreciate finally hearing that, because this is the first I've heard that stuff's not happening. I did have one townsperson contact me because they weren't even getting phone calls back. So, but luckily, I said, what's your address? I pulled up their address, and they were sitting in there just pending payment, luckily. So I said, pay, print off, there's your permit, you're good to start. Because it was just it was internal, they were doing a remodel inside the house. But that was the first I'd heard that there was not even getting communication back, which is the second piece we're looking at, is because besides iWorks getting in here, we need to get Comcast in here and figure out why our phone systems aren't working properly, because people say they can't get the messages, or they're not getting messages, or it's booting them, to a general mailbox that we can't get open. So I think that's another piece of the issue, but that's secondary. But this is the first I've heard that, besides her being out sick, and then Scott being out last week as well, this is the first I've heard that there's a backup. I mean, I figured there'd be a small backup, but not what you're hinting at. So.
Well, the thing is too is, and I asked that question last week, at least a week ago, was why are we putting on the internet, on your webpage, that the building office is closed? That's sending the wrong message out there. The building office is closed. There's no other information. So I'm a contractor. Yahoo! The gates are open, man. I'm going for everything. So we can put down that the building office clerk is, on emergency leave, whatever it may be. Contact, do your permits through the online portal, or call the building inspector with any questions or scheduling of inspections. And that's one of the biggest things. That's the biggest thing I'm getting is, finally, and people will call Rich and go, I'm just trying to get his inspection, why, I'm just chasing around, I'm not getting any phone calls, but they're not calling my cell phone. That cell phone is a town cell phone, it's paid by the town. My cell phone number should be on there too for people to call. If you're having a problem getting, call my cell phone. I don't have a problem with that. I do leave my cell phone off when I am on duty on range.
Mm-hmm.
But I will call people back. The minute I'm off duty, I give everybody a call and schedule inspections. But to leave it that they don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
And they're getting pissed, and I don't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's
No, that's-
exactly the way it is.
No, I completely get that. Like you said, there's a lot of things going on right now, and to stall them out, or like you said, you've got 30 days to respond, or you say they're closed. Yeah, I mean, you're basically given, free will to, all of a sudden you just gave the inmates the keys. So
Exactly.
yeah, so
So I think the process needs to be I think it needs to be driven. I do think it needs to be driven through the board here a little bit, or supported by the board, that we get on board with, especially when Sue comes back, we get some training for iWorks, and we get on board with trying to, get the permit process to go through with some input from the other boards. It's only a matter of looking at the permit and saying, yeah, I have a problem, or no, I don't.
right, and that's kind of what we're talking. Like Bob had asked, kind of what we're doing tonight, and I said, it comes down to that piece of, like I said, so the bigger ones that I see are like when we have a subdivision, right? So the subdivision, all subdivisions have to go to the planning board. So the planning board goes through and they put on the list that there are these restrictions or these qualifications that have to be completed for this subdivision to be complete, things like that. And then obviously because like you said, it's either not part of the file or it's not in iWorks. It'd be great for you to put, like you said, to have a note on there. So you would click off to the side, notes, you'd see planning board, and the restrictions that they had or the qualifications that need to be met for that to get a certificate of occupancy. So, but then once you have three, or you got the houses there, the people have the certificate of occupancy. Now, what power do you have at this point now? They're in the house.
Yep.
Now you go, oh, well, you have to do this. I'm in my house. What are you going to do? You're going to kick me out of my house because I didn't, put in a drain in the right spot? No, that's all those things that should be done prior to. But like you said, if it's not part of the hard file, and you're not going to sit there and carry around, 100 hard files with you. I mean, it's that piece of, it'd be so much quicker for you to just be able to pull that up, see it, do it, and then you could actually, like you said, you'd say, hey, I'm inspecting such and such property, and
Right.
to ask, can one member of the board walk through and look, do you see these specific pieces you wanted done before I give a certificate of occupancy, or they could put the note, Rick, please make sure that these specific pieces are done when you do your next inspection or whatever. I mean, it's those pieces. Like you said, just communication, closing the loop, I think is the biggest issue.
Right. And when you go on iWorks, even if it was Bob on conservation,
Mhm.
he had a question about some wetlands. He writes notes, he puts on there, he hits alert note. Every time you open that window, that alert's gonna come up. Every time you gotta say, okay. So anybody on the system can't say, well, I didn't see Bob's note, because it's a flag right there. I said, okay, yeah, I know there's that note there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way we can hold accountability, but also go through the process.
Rick, at what point, if we assume that the building process starts when they first do the land clearing until they get the permit to occupy the dwelling, along that continuum, what point in the timeline is a building permit required?
After it's gone through planning board and zoning board, as long as there's no zoning, well, planning board will trigger zoning board. If there's any issues on the site plan, they're gonna kick it to zoning board. So it basically triggers the minute that the zoning board, you guys have done subdivision, you have lots of record and things like that. As soon as it's a lot of record, then it's a buildable lot. The building official basically deals with construction. I'm responsible for 3 feet away from that building and the construction from the footings to the ridge of that building. It's all construction. As zoning, I just gotta make sure that there's, as a zoning officer, you make sure that there's no zoning violations, like somebody's not putting a building, a commercial building, a residential.
So if I ask the town, whoever the person may be, if I ask them at what point I have to get a building permit, what would you tell me?
The minute you start you can dig holes and stuff, but before you start pouring footings, you need a building permit.
In my experience, the years I've been on the commission, the vast majority of violations take place before the person ever applies for a building permit. Because they don't know. In my humble opinion, the building process starts when they start clearing the land. You have areas you're responsible for, but there ought to be checkpoints along the way that the commission gets involved in so they can go out. For example, if he purchases the land, we should say, what are you gonna do with the land? So I'm just gonna use it for a woodlot, no problem. But if he's gonna build on it, we have to somehow get in there earlier to see what the land looks like, to see where he's gonna put the house, where's the septic gonna go, where's the driveway gonna go? Because if they do all those things before they get the permit, that's when the major impacts take place in the natural resources. So I don't know, I'm not saying I have a solution or you should be involved in it yourself personally, but I think the building process should take that into consideration.
Yeah, and that's why we rely back on the planning board, because a planning board, for a better means, is just a terminology. It's actually a land use board. And they're the ones that determine lots. Is a lot buildable, is it sizable, is there too many wetlands, is there stuff? That happens, you're right, it happens back then, but it's not my
I
authority.
understand,
Yeah.
It goes back to the planning board
But-
to say
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Then-
So again,
May I
that,
speak? Whoops, sorry.
who's me?
Debbie.
Yes, go ahead.
So, part of that process that got dropped was, the staff meetings we used to have, which were very informative. And so all the department heads were on the same page as if there was a subdivision coming up, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't have those anymore. And also, I was just thinking that when a subdivision or a lot line adjustment gets approved, we could save it in Avatar. There's a thing that you can save the actual document. So we could save the plans and the decision letter, et cetera. And when someone applies for a building permit, all Susan or whoever would have to do is look in the avatar on their tax card and click on the panorama button and everything's there. So that would be available to Susan or Rick or whoever.
Okay.
Somebody named D has their hand up.
Dee, did you have a question?
No, I appreciate this because I know that Rick's been super busy and I know I wanted to talk and it's hard to figure out kind of when, so I've been trying to use email judiciously without overwhelming him. And I know that Sean mentioned the iWork system to the planning. So I do think if we can set a time and if it's appropriate for training of folks on the planning board to bring that forward to one of our meetings, I think that that's going to be a helpful way for us to communicate. You know, right now it's an odd time. It's an odd time for staffing and some of the new and really old projects that are coming up that we're trying to all catch up on. So I think this is helpful, and I'd like to encourage us to get our processes a little bit smoother. We've been wanting to do that for a while, and I think that iWorks gives us a vehicle. And if we have advance notice, it makes it certainly easier for us to train, maybe alongside Debbie or in a separate module. I don't know if they have like a university where you can kind of go in and do your own self-training with videos, or if they do it all manually.
I'm not sure.
Just one thing about iWorks, we only pay for 2 or 3 logons, so we wouldn't be able to give everybody, you know, all the boards even one person on each board
Yeah,
access, so we would have to maybe you can send emails directly from iWork, so we could maybe send an email to all the board members.
but it's something too. If we looking at this process, that's something we could research what the cost of an additional log on is, because you're only talking, if we have three, if you say we have three in the office currently. If we have to add three more, we could just see, look, we're not asking for any more pieces, just some additional logons, and use the system that's there. So that's something maybe we could look into cost-wise. And just touching back on what you said, Deb, I think if I understand Bob right, is the issue we're having is not as far as people with subdivisions, but if it's already been subdivided. So someone's got a 5-acre lot, however it is, and it's been sitting there unused for X number of years, and suddenly they decide, it's a good day to start building. Obviously, as long as they're not buying pressure treated right now, it's not so bad. But the whole piece of, like you said, they could go out and start cutting trees and pulling stumps and everything else. Right, and we would know nothing about that, because there's, I guess, either it's, and again, I'm speaking out of my ignorance of not knowing some of the zoning stuff, but if there's nothing that states before you cut beyond X number of feet of woodlands for any reason, a permit or an intent to cut or whatever we need to. So I think that's the piece that you start to do. And then as soon as you see an intent to cut on the Conservation Commission, it should be, and I think we had this discussion, as soon as you put intent to cut, part of that should be a release to have the Conservation Commission come walk the property.
Well, that is done now.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the Board of Assessors approves the permit to cut
Mm-hmm.
before they get it to us, so we have no recourse, even if it's wetlands on the property, he's already signed it.
Right.
We have to be able to intervene before they sign, before anything is signed. It's a good example, John. There's a house down on Goen Road, and there's a small road in there called Deer Run.
Yep.
And I'm guessing 10, it could be longer, around 10 years ago, 2 houses were put in. And there were no wetlands on the property. So that seemed okay. So we didn't intervene, we didn't get called to review the site or anything. The house went up. Lo and behold, we have a town ordinance, stream setbacks, a stream ordinance, okay? The house was 8 feet, the garage was 8 feet from the stream. How could that have been stopped? If the commission had received a configuration of the lot and where the various structures are gonna go on the lot, we can say, well, there's a problem here, you're too close. That doesn't happen now. Maybe Rick has a solution for that kind of thing, I don't know.
Well, I think what he's saying is you would have access to that piece, so he could say, hey, he could just shoot an email to the Conservation Commission. There's a new building going up, and there is a stream on the property. It's not wetlands, there's a stream. Can you take a look at their scale drawing?
Absolutely.
And then that would answer that question. But I think, again, I think by talking about this and bringing this out, we can look during this whole process and start to address that, like you said, even with the assessors, that they're going to give a intent to cut. Well, as soon as they receive the application for an intent to cut, that should trigger right away. Have the Conservation Commission go check the property out. They check it out. They come back to us, go, yes, everything's fine, or here's the breakdown of the property, and then that's part of the issuance of their intent to cut permit. So I think this is opening up dialogue that it sounds like has needed to happen for quite a while.
Can I butt in here again, please?
I'm sure you can.
Thanks, appreciate it. So we went through this with the Board of Assessors when I was doing land use, and it is not a public document until the Board of Assessors signs the intent to cut or intent to excavate. So we cannot give it to the Conservation Commission, because I was doing that for a while, and then we found out that is not legal to do. So the Board of Assessors has a certain amount of time that they have to have to sign that intent to cut or intent to excavate. Once it's signed, then it's a public document and all the boards can look at it, or anyone from the public, but it's not a public document until it is signed, and that's per the NHMA.
That is
So
true.
Debbie, can there be a delay put on the active date so that from the time it's signed to 10 days, in 10 days it's effective?
Nope.
What they can do, John,
Uh-huh.
is that sometimes it sits there for 3 or 4 days before they sign it because of time constraints or whatever. What they can do is when it first comes in, we can get a copy. They don't have to delay signing. It would be up to the Conservation Commission to expedite the process, to review it and say, assessors, you should not sign that. It's the same thing with excavation. Excavation is done before a building permit is put out, okay?
Right.
So we don't know where the cellar hole's gonna go. We have no idea if there's gonna be an impact. So all these things have to have an intervention period of X number of days if it's gonna be effective.
Okay.
But Bob, we tried that, remember? And we found that it was not legal. We cannot give it to the Conservation Commission prior to the Board of Assessors signing it, because it is not a public document.
May I respond to that?
Yes, go ahead.
I agree with
Yeah.
that, I agree with that, Deb, but sometimes we have to think out of the box and say, these things have to be changed. How can we change this process? Because the state on one hand is saying, you wanna expedite the logging permit, on the other hand, they say, we wanna protect wetlands. Well, which is it? So that's why we have state representatives to change those things.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess you would have to contact the state rep and say, Conservation Commission needs to see an intent to cut or an intent to excavate before it's signed.
There used to
But
be,
until then, you can't do it. It's illegal.
Let me ask a question, is the application for intent to cut, and I don't know, so is that a state application or is it a town
No,
application?
State.
Okay.
It's a state one. We frozen?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I had a couple people trying to log in, and the notice didn't come through right away. So. Okay. No. So it's. So yeah, it sounds like the first step is getting this iWorks training started more sooner than later. Seeing what we can do about the cost-wise on extra logins, pieces like that, and then working to get some of the members of each board trained on how to go in and be able to look at it, and put notes, put markers, and then communication, which seems to be overall an issue that we're having again. Unfortunately, it's just circular communication is what I like to call it. Not just direct communication, but circular. Get all the people that need to be in it and close that loop. You know, because too many times, like you said, you send something out and you go, I didn't hear back, and what it is it was discussed, and evidently the communication didn't make it back to you because other stuff got put on top of it. So I think that's the pieces we need to get better again at our circular communication, closing that loop on a regular basis, and with all the boards as well as within the office. Bob.
John, regarding the number of logins in iWorks,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to me that when I was looking at the program, it seemed to me as though you could have shared logins. For example, you could have planning board. Anybody in the planning board
Right.
could log in.
Yeah, and that's all I'm thinking is like it would be just one per board.
Sure.
You know, so I mean, each person here, you know, that needs it would do it, because sometimes, which is, you know, heaven forbid we have to shut the office down again completely. They have the ability to work from home, so you know, you wouldn't want them using the same logins if they're working remotely or anything like that. And you want to make sure probably that different ones have different levels of approvals, security, and such. But no, I would think that would make complete sense. That, you know, Concom would have one login, planning would have one login, zoning would have one login, and that it would be shared. You know, and that way the board would designate who their person is that's handling that building, or this week, you know, if someone's on vacation or however they want to do it. But no, that makes complete sense. It would just be a singular login for each department. So.
The only other thing that I could see is, you just said one of the key words is, what do we do when that person's not around on vacation?
And,
And that's
yeah.
another process we gotta deal with here, because right now, the train's, bro, it's derailed.
Right, and that's
We gotta
something,
get it back
yeah.
on the track.
So that's something Chairman Talbot reached out to me before the meeting when he let me know he was not going to be here, is that maybe it's a position we have to look at, which we've talked about as putting another person here that knows just enough to cover in a couple spots if Jen goes out sick or Sue goes out sick or something like that, that we could have somebody, and maybe it's one of those pieces where they might fill multiple spots, but they're here in case of an emergency or a vacation, because just because somebody goes on vacation doesn't mean the building permitting stops. So, or someone's sick or anything. So I think that is something that needs to be looked at and discussed to make sure that there is a backup in case this happens. Because I mean, unfortunately, this is kind of a perfect storm we've gotten into, but I don't see it ever being, oh, that's the only time it's ever going to happen. People get hurt. People have, family emergencies. People have vacations. So I think it's something we need to make sure that we are better well planned for. Jason, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I was gonna say, how do we get this ball rolling for the training? What are the steps that we?
I think we need to contact iWorks, find out, whether it is like Dee said, do they have some self-directed trainings? Because that's a lot of the programs I use through my work are similar type things, automated systems, but they give you videos to watch. Or is it something that they could send a trainer and we schedule a night to have people show up or zoom in and what we need to. But then as far as in the office, I think that's definitely, however we did our initial iWorks training, we need to get that set back up and get that going so that our people, I'm not going to say they're going to be experts, but that way they can at least get going, know where they need to be looking for stuff, and then who to call if they have any questions. So I think that's the first step is getting in touch with iWorks and finding out those pieces, and then getting your stuff back on the rails.
I would also recommend that evaluate as a board, and I'm not telling you how to do your job, I'm just recommendation. Evaluate what's going on, because we were sitting in this spot a year ago with Debbie and Laurie saying there's a lot of work going on here. This used to be a full-time and a part-time position that went to 2 part-times. And I see that now, even one of the positions is even being reallocated to other areas is on top of that. So you need to look at what workload is here to keep up with that. Because even sometimes the 2 days that I know when Sue was here, and I mean no insult by that, but she also had other things going on. For instance, that office got shut down for 2 days just for the town report. Well, you can't shut down a building department. This town in Ringe are the most, take southern New Hampshire and look at the construction scale. We're off the charts. So you just you can't ignore that. You can't shut it down. You gotta, their customers, they're paying, and it's really a self-funding department. So you really gotta, if you want compliance, you gotta give the respect of the compliance back. And it's just my input.
It's
insult to anybody.
No, it's
You
no
gotta
one.
pay attention to
No insult taken at all. It's something we need to look at seriously and make sure that it's getting taken care of. So, good. All right. Do you have anything else, Jason? Gentlemen, Jen, anything? You have that look of.
Oh, there's so much I want to say, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
But I appreciate that.
All right.
But I guess to end the discussion, is this gonna be forwarded to the administrator to expedite this?
Yeah, then we can find out what's going on with iWorks. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so very much, all, for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, Jen.
All right. Cool. Good. So that's all. So old new business. Let's see if there's anything from last week. There's not much that we're going to decide on or anything tonight. Did you have any opportunity to meet with the chief about the work at the office?
Yeah, I spoke with him briefly to set up a meeting with my brother, myself, and him. And
Okay.
we're meeting him tomorrow
Okay.
to go over that. Mark emailed me and said he's meeting with 2 cleaning companies tomorrow
Okay. Great.
that are gonna price out both buildings, but I asked for separate prices. Hopefully we get separate.
Right.
Yeah, Mark did comment in his email, if it would be feasible to look into a local cleaning company who would be willing to get background checks and certifications. That may not have them now, but
I think what he'd have to do with that again, if he can get a price on it, get the price, but then we would have to, at that point, the piece where the chief is involved, and this would, I didn't want to, when we were clarifying the other day, there's obviously only certain, we can't really discuss through email, so it was just, but what the piece that we need from the chief, once we have these, whether it be 2 others and then a local, is with the 2 that were off of the state list, I'm assuming that's where he got the name, is on the state list, is the chief comfortable with the vetting process that has gone on for those 2 companies? And if we go through a local company, how would he want us to go about, or how would we go about making sure that that piece is taken care of, because it's not just background checks. The company needs to be bonded for a certain, because they're normally in the police station. Is a little different. There's normally somebody there, but a lot of times the officers are on the road. But here, a lot of times they'd be in when no one's here, so they have to be bonded to be able to come in, go into offices, things like that. So there's some pieces there that have to be looked at. So I think that would be where the chief gets pulled in, is his level of comfort for the security point,
absolutely.
not just for the police department, but in all reality, he's in charge of the security for all our buildings. He makes a recommendation, he looks at it, the pieces like that. So it would be, what level of comfort does he have, and how far do we have to go to get those groups cleared if they're a local company? I'm not opposed to a local company. I don't think any of us are, but I think it's going to come down to obviously the 2 things: price and security. So
yeah, and price is meaningless if you don't have
right.
the
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, because like right now we have no one cleaning the police station, and we have a town employee.
Well, actually, we have officers
right?
who get
Clean.
paid a lot
Right.
to
So,
clean.
but yeah, and then here we have
So-
a town employee that fills another position
Yeah.
that is doing the cleaning here.
And I've heard that she would like to.
She would like to step
Drop.
away from it. Yes.
So
Yes.
there
So-
is that update. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Other than that, I don't believe I had anything else looking back on last week's meeting, and unfortunately I don't have the other pieces, and I received a message from Chairman Talbot that he did get notice from the town administrator that he went home ill. So
Today.
this afternoon,
Oh.
he got through the day, but he said that he was not feeling well and felt in light of current situations it was best for him to go home instead of staying. So he did, but evidently he messaged Chairman Talbot while Chairman Talbot was messaging and speaking with me on the phone. So we all missed each other on that one. So
All right. Yeah, I don't know.
other than that, I don't have anything else. But lots, it seems, you know, much like everything else we've been talking about, it seems like communication, follow-up, and training are keys right now.
Yeah. I guess it was, like you said, a perfect storm. Lori leaving and
Yeah.
all the,
Yeah, and I know initially I know Deb was doing some training with
yeah.
with Sue, but at the same point, Deb was also, that was when she started helping to fill in. So she was being pulled in two different directions because she was still sitting in her normal desk. She was helping out in the town clerk tax collector office, and she was trying to train Sue. And then shortly after that, we lost Jess completely. So unfortunately, it looks like
And
it is all coming
that
around.
was then Debbie became town.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
that's,
so it's unfortunately it is quickly catching up to us. So not that apologies fix anything, but for anyone paying attention, we apologize for where we sit today, but we are working as quickly as possible to fix it. So, all right. Do you have anything else, sir?
I have none.
All right. Would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?